Think Jaguar and you would immediately imagine a large, luxurious vehicle with classic looks. They may have made some sports cars along the way, but most of us have come to know the brand by its big sedans like the XJ, a model series dating back to the 60s. In the last 5 years though, Jaguar has totally broken out of its mold. They've since introduced the F-Pace SUV, the E-Pace crossover, and the all-electric I-Pace. They've also shrunken their sedans. Aside from the XJ, there's also the mid-size Jaguar XF, and for this video, there's the XE Sport Saloon. I've never driven one of those before, but now there's a new model. When the XE was introduced in 2014, it was named the most beautiful car of the year at the Festival Automobile International, an annual event in Paris that awards the most artistic automotive designs. With this latest facelift model, they've made the head and tail lamps sharper and slimmer, along with a new front and rear bumper design and a grille that's smaller than before. You get 18-inch wheels as standard, but what we have here are the optional 19-inch wheels with Pirelli P0 tyres. Couple that with the gorgeous Firenze red colour, and the XE becomes simply irresistible to look at. For some reason, they've named all their vibrant exterior colours after renowned travel destinations. There's the Fuji White, Portofino Blue, no, that's a blue Portofino. I meant Portofino Blue. But I think what suits the XE the best is this Firenze Red. I think it just looks so much more desirable compared to the facelift model. I'm sorry, but I spent hours staring at this car and there is not one angle on it that looks bad. Sure, it doesn't have the bulges or the "hey, look at me" looks, but it's stylish without being shouty. And with its sloping roofline that gives it a coupe-like silhouette, it just looks fast without even moving. And I particularly like how the hips extend out just a bit, giving the car a nice hunkered down stance. I'm willing to bet that this entire look will remain timeless in the years to come. The days of big clumsy Jaguars are clearly over. Before, Jaguars would mostly be owned by elderly gentlemen who wears fedoras and smoke cigars while playing golf. With the XE, Jaguar has opened up its cars to a wider, younger audience. And it's modern too. The body is made entirely of aluminium, there are lightweight magnesium components, and even aerospace technologies applied onto the body, making it more durable and rigid. In fact, Jaguar says the XE is the most rigid saloon they've ever built. Should be quite an interesting drive, I reckon. But before we get to that, because the XE is in the same category as the more mass-produced BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, I've got two questions. Is it still a Jaguar? And is it really a sports saloon? For something to be a Jaguar, I think it needs to have presence and prestige. It can't feel cheap, because it isn't. And I'm sure you'd agree that the exterior does not feel that way at all, especially with a much sportier front and rear design, along with these mesmerizing dynamic indicators. Inside, you get touchscreen displays everywhere. The new instrument cluster is digital, along with the new Touch Duo Pro infotainment system with a much larger display. And if these look familiar to you, that's because you've seen them in the Range Rover Velar. There's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with a Meridian sound system, although it's not as potent as the one in the Evoque we had recently. But those are just the modern amenities you'd expect in any of the current premium vehicles. Like I said, a Jag, even a baby Jag, needs to feel posh and expensive. And so far from what I've seen and felt, there are hints of it here and there. Jaguar has not entirely neglected their entry-level car. The dashboard is the most obvious example. I like how the horseshoe shape, or rather the Riva hoop as Jaguar calls it, loops in front of you and then flows towards the doors. Very nice. Then you get sculptures here on the door panel, while the grain leather feels nice to the touch. I particularly like the grooves on these trims and the Jaguar wording on the vents. It's always these little things, like the Jaguar symbol on the headlamps, that make you go, whoa. After a few days in this car, once the wow factor has died off, the shortcomings do become a bit more noticeable. I do have a few criticisms from behind the wheel. Because of the dashboard design and the thicker A-pillar section, it does take a bit of getting used to when you're maneuvering the car in tight spaces. It gets a bit tricky as well when you're trying to estimate how much space you have by the side of the car. This section here looks a bit unusual if you ask me. Because of the layout with the small display squashed between these two knobs, it just looks a little incomplete. And then there's this section where Jaguar has completely replaced the pop-up rotary drive control with a gear lever. That's fine, but the buttons surrounding it looks like it was pulled off from the Jaguars they used to make 30-40 years ago, or even Land Rovers. Not very Jaguar-like. The space back here isn't very Jaguar-like as well, but that's only if you compare this against the big old-fashioned Jaguars. There's still sufficient leg room, knee room, and because the headlining curves up a bit, it frees up a bit of headroom as well. All in all, despite how compact it is, it doesn't feel claustrophobic at all. But then of course, this is a sports saloon after all. I think people who buy these things prioritize driving dynamics, driving pleasure, more than the comfort of their passengers. Just my opinion. Now that we've established that it's quite the Jaguar, is it a sports saloon? Definitely. First of all, the sitting position is just on point. The seats are really supportive and I like how it holds you all the way up here where you just sink in. And then you have a new touch-sensitive steering wheel with chunky pedal shifters. It's the same one that you see in the all-electric Jaguar I-Pace. It's not only nice to look at, but I like how thick it feels, just like the M Sport steering wheels in the BMWs. And then there's the power. It's got a 2-litre turbocharged engine paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It makes 300 horsepower, 400 Newton meters of torque, and that's a lot. It's quick. It is quick. But power is not the only thing that makes a sports saloon a sports saloon. It needs to drive well, and my, I'm surprised to find out how good this one drives. It's sharp, it's composed, and when you're being an absolute rascal in dynamic mode, this one just stays composed. For someone who is actually driving a Jaguar for the first time ever, this is a very good impression. And that sound, can you hear that? Although I'm 99% sure that it's a fake noise because I hear it coming from the front. But nonetheless, it's a very nice fake noise. Gear shifts are quick in dynamic mode, as quick as an automatic gearbox can be. Really got no complaints there. It reacts quick enough as and when I want it to. Job done. So Jaguar sees the BMW 330i and the Mercedes C300 as competitors. But in terms of power, there's no competition because this one has 50 more horsepower than the two of them. It's a little bit quicker from 0 to 100, but if you ask me, the 330i just feels a little more visceral. It feels like it's going faster. Whereas this one feels a lot more refined, more sophisticated, even when you're going full throttle. The pushbacks as well are not as harsh. Whereas in the 330i, for example, you just feel a lot more of everything. It's eager and fully complies to all your instructions when you're in dynamic mode. But when you're not, you get the sense that the car doesn't like to be rushed. It's super smooth when you're driving it like a respectable person. But if you're not, It feels like the car is asking you, what are you doing? Drive properly. And when you're just cruising along, like now, I dare say it's a lot quieter in here than in the BMW or the Mercedes. In terms of how they drive and handle, the BMW 3 Series just leads the way, no doubt. But this one, pound for pound, is right up there with it. Although the 3 Series just stands out a bit more in terms of how exhilarating, how exciting it feels. And it's more comfortable than both its competitors, even the C300 with air suspension, but especially the 330i. I've driven one of those before. Half the time you're going like this. Personally, I don't like it. I think it's just too stiff. Headache way. This one is just nice and firm. As for the price, the XE is 100,000 ringgit more compared to the C and the 3. Actually, the new M340i is a more appropriate comparison because it's priced nearly the same and it's more powerful. Even so, I think the Jag still stands out. Now hear me out. Firstly, it's a Jaguar. If you saw two persons at the same place, one came out of a BMW 3 Series, whether it's the 330i or the M340i, and then the other person came out in this, which one would you pay more attention to? You'd most definitely look at the person coming out of the Jaguar, wondering,
wow, very atas this person. Wow, what does this fella do?
And you look so good coming out of this car. Don't get me wrong, the C and the 3 are good looking cars, but this is a different kind of good looking. You can call this sexy, but I don't think you can say the same for the other two. And every time I see the reflection of this car through a window or something, I just go, whoa, damn. They may be in the same category in terms of size, but the similarities end right there. Comparing this car to the C or the 3, it's like comparing a pair of belly leather shoes to a pair of Clarks. I mean, have you ever heard someone ask, a pair of Clarks is just as good and it costs less? Why can't the belly be priced the same? No, right? Personally, if you ask me, if I wanted a 3 Series, I think the 320i is good enough. But if I wanted a higher end 3 Series, I'd strongly consider this. And I think people who buy these things won't even compare it like that. They won't look at their friends or neighbors' new 3 Series or new C-Class and say, wow, nice car, I want one as well. For them, they'll just go, I want a Jaguar, despite the price difference. I mean, that's why people spend so much more on nicer things, right? It's like why girls spend thousands of ringgits on a handbag when one that costs just a few hundred ringgit does the job, to make a statement. And this one is a real statement. So, is the facelift Jaguar XE the car for you? If you think for 100,000 ringgit or so less, you're getting more value in the BMW 330i or the Mercedes C300, you're probably right. But with that mentality, you'd never know how to appreciate the prestige of a Jaguar. With brands like that, whether it's with the XE, the XF, or even the F-Pace SUV, for them, I'd like to believe it's more like a my next car, I want it to be a Jaguar type of thinking. For more information on the facelift Jaguar XE, do log on to AutoBuzz.my. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon for the latest notifications on our newest videos. If you like what we're wearing, check out the AutoBuzz store to purchase them along with an exclusive limited edition collection. Very nice. Very nice. One more time. What do I need to say even? I also don't know what the line is.
Front, back. Front, back.
Front, back. Okay.